The Orion Vanguard, a vessel of unmatched sophistication, slipped into the shadows of Earth's solar system. Its hull, forged from metals that absorbed and refracted light, appeared to shimmer like liquid starlight. The crew aboard this flagship of the Galactic Confederation had faced countless encounters with new civilizations, but something about Earth felt different, a disquieting enigma wrapped in layers of contradictions. Captain Kren, his stature commanding yet calm, stood on the bridge as the vast blue-and-green orb grew larger in the viewport. His 3 luminous eyes blinked in synchronized precision, a biological adaptation that allowed him to perceive minute energy signatures in the environment. Today, his gaze was fixed on the 3rd planet. "Commander Foon," Kren spoke, his tone measured yet questioning. "Are we certain about these readings? There must be an error." Foon, his second-in-command, was a hulking creature with scaled, chameleon-like skin that shimmered faintly in the dim light of the ship. He tapped the controls at his station, frustration creasing his reptilian brow. "No error, Captain. The signals are genuine, though peculiar. Primitive analog transmissions overlap with quantum bursts of such complexity that even our systems struggle to decipher them." Kren's mandibles twitched, a rare show of unease. "It's as if 2 civilizations are coexisting. One primitive, the other impossibly advanced. Or, Foon ventured, one is concealing itself behind the other." The possibility settled heavily in the air. Concealment on such a scale would require technological mastery far beyond anything even the Confederation had achieved. Yet, Earth's observable data painted a picture of a civilization barely reaching the threshold of interstellar travel. Fossil fuels still powered their engines, and crude satellites orbited their skies like relics of a bygone era. "We'll know soon enough," Kren said, his voice firm. "Bring us closer and prepare for descent." As the Orion Vanguard approached Earth, its sensors unveiled more inconsistencies. The planet's atmosphere showed signs of engineered stability, even in areas where environmental damage should have caused chaos. Subtle energy fields rippled through the planet, repairing ozone layers and neutralizing pollutants. These were not the actions of a species struggling with basic science. The landing coordinates came in as expected, though not from Earth's primitive communication systems. A direct signal bypassed the planet's networks, appearing in the Vanguard systems as if invited by an unseen hand. The location, a barren desert in the northern hemisphere. No welcoming committee. No visible defense systems. Just silence. "This feels wrong," Foon muttered as the ship's landing gears extended. Civilizations on the brink of first contact typically scramble to prepare. Panic, curiosity, or pride usually dictate their actions. Not this. Kren nodded in agreement but said nothing. His instincts warned him of an intelligence that far exceeded appearances, yet he couldn't grasp its full extent. The ship settled softly onto the desert floor, its advanced dampening systems ensuring the planet's surface remained undisturbed. The crew watched as the external cameras displayed a sparse landscape, empty save for 3 lone figures standing a short distance from the ship's ramp. No military battalions, no media frenzy, just 3 humans, dressed simply, their stances relaxed yet exuding an unsettling confidence. Kren led the delegation as the ramp descended. His diplomatic robes shimmered faintly in the sunlight, a show of formality and respect. Behind him, 2 of his most trusted officers followed, their forms dwarfed by the imposing bulk of the ship. The 3 humans did not move, their gazes steady. The one in the center, a woman with sharp eyes and a calm demeanor, stepped forward as the alien delegation approached. "Welcome to Earth," she said, her voice clear and steady. "I am Dr. Elena Sharp, Earth's envoy for this meeting. We've been expecting you." Her words struck like a jolt of electricity. Expecting them? No previous transmissions from Earth had indicated knowledge of their approach. Moreover, her speech was flawless, her enunciation and tone perfectly mimicking the universal translator's precision. But Kren's team hadn't activated the device yet. "You speak our language?" Kren asked, his tone carefully neutral, though his mandibles clicked softly, a sign of his species' unease. Dr. Sharp offered a small smile. "We find it useful to be prepared." Prepared. The word echoed ominously in Kren's mind. Prepared for what? The implications sent a ripple of unease through his crew. Elena gestured toward a structure nearby. It appeared simple, a rectangular building of concrete and steel, unadorned and practical. "We've arranged accommodations that should meet your needs. Please, follow me." The group moved toward the facility, their footsteps crunching softly against the dry desert sand. As they entered, Kren's initial impression of simplicity dissolved. While the building's exterior was plain, the interior was a marvel of precision engineering. The air quality was calibrated perfectly to accommodate their species' respiratory requirements. Invisible energy fields adjusted the temperature as they walked, maintaining a constant environment tailored to their needs. "This place is unexpected," Kren admitted, his tone cautious. Elena turned to face him. "We aim to make our guests comfortable." One of Kren's officers, a scientist named Lissa, couldn't hold back her curiosity. Her translucent appendages quivered as she scanned the room. "Your technology is advanced. Yet, your world appears fragmented. Primitive, even. How do you reconcile this contradiction?" Elena's smile widened slightly, a hint of amusement dancing in her eyes. "We prefer to focus on function rather than appearances. Shall we continue?" The group was led to a conference room where chairs seemingly made of simple materials adjusted automatically to accommodate alien anatomies. Kren took a seat cautiously, noting the way the chair molded to his form without any visible mechanism. Drinks were offered, again, tailored perfectly to their physiology. Every detail, from the temperature to the molecular structure of the liquid, was precisely what Kren's species considered ideal. "How do you know so much about us?" Kren asked, his patience thinning under the weight of unanswered questions. Elena leaned back, her demeanor still calm but now tinged with something deeper, an ancient, knowing confidence. "Because we've been watching for a very long time." The room fell silent. Kren's mind raced, piecing together fragments of the puzzle. Watching? For how long? And to what end? Before he could voice his next question, a section of the wall shifted, revealing a holographic display of Earth's history. Images of humans constructing primitive tools blurred into scenes of incomprehensible technology, machines and structures that should have been centuries beyond their current capabilities. "Earth is not what it seems, Captain," Elena said, her tone soft yet heavy with meaning. "We've chosen to present ourselves in a way that doesn't alarm or overwhelm. But make no mistake, humanity is far older and more advanced than you realize." Kren's mandibles clicked again, louder this time. His instincts screamed that he had underestimated Earth. Whatever secrets these humans held, they were vast, carefully hidden beneath layers of deliberate simplicity. And now, it seemed, those secrets were beginning to surface. The air inside the Earth facility was thick with unspoken tension as Captain Kren and his delegation followed Dr. Elena Sharp deeper into the structure. Every step revealed more contradictions. The walls appeared plain and unadorned, yet occasional flickers of energy hinted at hidden mechanisms far beyond the capabilities of any species the Confederation had encountered. Kren's scaled hands brushed a nearby surface, his eyes narrowing as a faint pulse of energy rippled through his fingertips. "This material," he muttered to himself, "it feels alive." Dr. Sharp turned her head slightly, her expression unreadable. "It's an alloy unique to our planet. One of many we've developed over the millennia. Adaptive, self-healing, and perfectly suited for what lies ahead." "What lies ahead?" Kren asked, stopping in his tracks. His voice carried the weight of a seasoned diplomat, used to cutting through layers of subterfuge. Elena paused, turning fully to face him. Her calm demeanor shifted, her voice now layered with quiet authority. Captain, you and your crew are about to learn truths that will reshape everything you think you know about the galaxy. But first, you must see something. Follow me. The hallway opened into a massive chamber that stretched far beyond the confines of the building above ground. The ceiling glowed faintly, illuminating rows upon rows of objects arranged with meticulous care. Ships, devices, and artifacts of every shape and size stood in silent testimony to an unimaginable history. Kren's eyes widened as he stepped forward. His breath caught as he recognized several designs. A few matched Confederation blueprints almost exactly, while others mirrored designs of species that hadn't even achieved warp capabilities yet. "What is this place?" he asked, his voice hushed. "A repository," Elena replied simply. "A vault of knowledge, technology, and history collected over millions of years." "And millions?" stammered Foon, his claws twitching nervously. "That's impossible. No civilization could maintain continuity for that long." Elena's smile was faint but knowing. "Who said anything about continuity? Humanity's story is one of rise and fall. We've burned ourselves down to ash and rebuilt more times than we care to count. Each time, we reached further, learned more, until we finally understood." Kren frowned, his three luminous eyes narrowing. "Understood what?" "That the pursuit of power without wisdom is a path to destruction," Elena said, her voice tinged with both pride and regret. "We learned that lesson the hard way, Captain. And we vowed to ensure no one else would repeat our mistakes." As they moved deeper into the chamber, Dr. Sharp gestured to an ancient ship suspended in a field of golden light. Its hull was scorched, its edges jagged from what appeared to be a violent battle. Despite its age, the ship radiated a sense of quiet strength, as though it had endured countless storms and survived them all. "This was one of our first interstellar vessels," Elena explained. "It carried our ancestors to the stars long before the Confederation existed. We were explorers, dreamers, conquerors." "Conquerors?" Kren echoed, his voice sharp. "Your people waged war across the stars." "For a time," Elena admitted, her gaze distant. "We thought dominance was the pinnacle of achievement. But war taught us the cost of arrogance. We turned entire star systems into graveyards, extinguished species that could have been allies, and created weapons so devastating they scarred the fabric of space itself." Kren's mandibles twitched in shock. "And yet you survived." "Barely," Elena said, her voice quiet. "We came to the brink of extinction, not once, but many times. Each fall brought us closer to understanding what truly matters. That's why we chose to step back, to let the galaxy grow without our interference, until now." "Why now?" Lissa asked, her translucent appendages quivering with curiosity. "What's changed?" Dr. Sharp's expression darkened. She gestured to a nearby console, and the chamber's walls came alive with holographic projections. Images of space unfolded, showing a darkness creeping across the stars. It was not the absence of light, but something deeper, an unnatural void that seemed to consume everything it touched. "This," Elena said gravely. "We call it the Void Heralds. They are a remnant of our darkest era, a force we thought we had defeated eons ago. But they've returned, stronger and more relentless than before." Foon's claws clutched at his console, his scales shifting to a deep red hue, a sign of fear among his species. "You're saying this thing is your responsibility?" Elena's gaze didn't waver. "Yes. And no. The Void Heralds are not just our burden. They are a test, a challenge every spacefaring civilization must face. But this time, we won't let the galaxy stand alone. We've prepared." Kren's mind raced as he processed her words. The Void Heralds. A threat born from humanity's own arrogance, now poised to consume the galaxy. And yet, standing here, surrounded by artifacts of impossible ingenuity, he couldn't shake the feeling that humanity was more than ready to confront it. "Why reveal this now?" he asked. "Why not continue your masquerade, guiding us from the shadows as you claim you've done for centuries?" "Because time is running out," Elena said simply. "And because you deserve the truth. Humanity isn't here to conquer or dominate. We're here to teach. To help you, and others, navigate the path we once stumbled through blindly." Her words hung in the air like a challenge, daring Kren to see beyond his preconceptions. For the first time in his career, he felt the weight of a history far older and heavier than his own. "And if we refuse your help?" Kren asked cautiously. Elena's smile returned, gentle yet unyielding. "You won't. Because deep down, you know we're right. The galaxy isn't ready for what's coming, Captain. But together, we might just stand a chance." The chamber fell silent as Kren considered her words. Around him, the artifacts of humanity's forgotten past whispered of power, destruction, and redemption. And somewhere in the depths of space, the Void Heralds stirred, their return heralding a new chapter in the galaxy's history. One that humanity, in all its ancient wisdom, was determined to guide. The silence in the chamber was overwhelming, a heavy reminder of the history Dr. Elena Sharp had just unveiled. Captain Kren stood motionless, his three eyes darting between the alien artifacts and the strange holograms displaying the Void Herald's creeping darkness. This wasn't just a revelation, it was an upheaval of everything he thought he knew about the galaxy. "How long have you known this would happen?" Kren finally asked, his voice low, almost accusatory. Elena met his gaze with unflinching calm. "Longer than you've been traveling the stars. The Void Heralds are an ancient threat, one we've kept at bay for millennia. But their resurgence was inevitable. We've been watching, preparing, and waiting for the right moment to reveal ourselves." "Watching us," Lissa interjected, her appendages trembling with barely contained emotion. "Interfering with our development. Is that what you mean by preparing?" Elena's expression softened. "Interfering would imply control, and that's not what we've done. We've guided, nudged civilizations like yours away from paths that lead to ruin. Every inexplicable breakthrough your species has achieved, every mysterious leap in your understanding of science and technology, that was us." Kren's mandibles clicked softly, his skepticism rising. "You've been shaping our progress in secret. Why? Why not let us grow on our own terms?" "Because the galaxy doesn't have the luxury of time," Elena replied. She gestured to the hologram surrounding them, where the Void Heralds continued their relentless advance. "We've seen what happens when civilizations are left to their own devices. The strong prey on the weak. The ambitious destroy themselves in their hunger for power. We've lived through it, Captain. We won't let it happen again." The group moved deeper into the chamber, where the artifacts grew even more bizarre. Strange, crystalline structures pulsed with energy, their patterns shifting as the aliens approached. Ancient star maps hung in holographic form, displaying routes to systems long forgotten. At the center of it all was a single, unassuming pedestal. Upon it rested a cube, simple, metallic, and utterly unremarkable. "What's this?" Foon asked, his claws twitching as he fought the urge to examine it closer. "The keystone," Elena said, her voice reverent. "A relic of our first war with the Void Heralds. It holds the knowledge and power needed to stop them, but only those who understand its purpose can wield it." Kren frowned. "Why not use it yourselves?" "We already have," Elena said. "The keystone was instrumental in defeating the Void Heralds the first time. But it comes with a cost, a test of wisdom and restraint. Humanity learned its lessons the hard way. Now it's time for others to prove they can do the same." As they stood in the heart of this vast repository, alarms echoed through the chamber. A new hologram appeared, showing a fleet of ships emerging from hyperspace on the outskirts of Earth's solar system. The designs were unmistakable, sharp, angular, bristling with weapons. Raiders from the Tychon Expanse, a nomadic species known for preying on unprotected worlds. Perfect timing, Elena muttered, her calm demeanor never wavering. Captain Kren, it seems we have an opportunity for a demonstration. Kren stiffened. You're saying those raiders are here, now? Elena nodded. They've been targeting planets they believe are defenseless. Earth, by all appearances, fits that description. What they don't realize is that appearances can be deceiving. She turned to a nearby console and tapped a sequence of buttons. The chamber's walls shifted, revealing a hidden command center filled with humans monitoring the situation. The screens displayed the Tychon fleet as it advanced toward Earth, unaware of the trap they were walking into. What are you planning to do? Lissa asked, her voice tinged with both curiosity and concern. Show you why humanity doesn't need to flaunt its power, Elena replied. She gestured to one of the operators, who activated a series of commands. The Tychon ships, which had been charging their weapons and preparing for an assault, suddenly froze in place. What's happening to them? Kren demanded, his eyes widening. A localized spacetime manipulation field, Elena explained casually. It neutralizes their movement without causing damage. No need for explosions or destruction when a more elegant solution exists. On the screen, the Tychon ships were gently pulled into a stable orbit around Earth's moon, their systems shut down and their crews rendered unconscious. The entire process was over in minutes, executed with clinical precision. You possess this level of technology, Kren said, his voice filled with disbelief, and yet you allow your world to appear so primitive? Elena turned to him, her gaze piercing. Because power isn't the answer to every problem, Captain. Wisdom is. Humanity has learned that lesson through trials you can scarcely imagine. And now, we're offering to share that wisdom with the galaxy. The alarms silenced, replaced by a heavy stillness. Kren stared at the screens, his mind racing to comprehend what he had just witnessed. The Tychon raiders, a menace that had terrorized countless worlds, were defeated without a single shot fired. It was a display of restraint and control unlike anything he had ever seen. But before he could speak, a new alert flashed across the command center. This time, the holograms showed an image of deep space, far beyond the boundaries of Earth's system. A growing darkness spread across the stars, its shape formless yet undeniably menacing. The Void Heralds, Elena said quietly, her expression grim. They're accelerating their advance. Kren felt a chill ripple through his body. For all the power humanity had displayed, this new threat felt immeasurable, unstoppable. And yet, standing here in this ancient vault, he couldn't shake the feeling that humanity had faced worse, and survived. What do we do now? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Elena's gaze softened, though her resolve remained firm. Now, Captain, we prepare. Together. Because the galaxy's survival depends on it. The command center hummed with activity as the images of the Void Heralds' encroaching darkness filled every screen. Captain Kren stood silently, his scaled hands clasped tightly behind his back. His crew, stunned into stillness moments ago, now whispered nervously among themselves. The calm, collected demeanor of the humans only heightened the tension. Elena Sharp broke the silence. Captain Kren, this is where the galaxy must make its choice. The Void Heralds are not just a threat, they are a mirror, reflecting the dangers of unchecked ambition and hubris. You and your people will need to face them. But not alone. Kren turned to her, his three luminous eyes narrowing. You keep speaking in riddles, Dr. Sharp. If humanity has already defeated these heralds, why not simply eliminate them again? Why involve us, or anyone else? Elena stepped forward, her voice steady but tinged with gravity. Because this is a test, Captain. One that every spacefaring species must endure. The Void Heralds are not merely an enemy, they are a crucible. To face them without wisdom leads to annihilation. To face them with wisdom brings growth. Lissa, the team's scientist, spoke up, her voice trembling. A crucible? That's an unnecessarily poetic way to describe a threat capable of consuming entire star systems. Elena's gaze softened as she addressed Lissa. I understand your skepticism, but this is not just about survival. The Void Heralds force civilizations to confront their deepest flaws. They challenge us to use our power responsibly, or not at all. The room shifted again, the walls transforming into translucent panels that revealed the vast underground facility beyond. Miles of chambers, filled with artifacts and ships, extended into the distance. At the heart of it all, suspended in a glowing field, was the keystone. Its metallic surface shimmered faintly, and even from a distance, its presence was palpable. This, Elena said, gesturing toward the keystone, is your key to understanding. It contains the knowledge and tools needed to confront the Void Heralds. But accessing it requires more than intellect or strength. It requires wisdom. Kren stepped closer to the transparent wall, his gaze fixed on the keystone. And if we fail your test? Elena's expression hardened. Then your civilization will fall. As many have before you. Foon, the reptilian commander, hissed softly. You make it sound as though you're gambling with the lives of entire species. It's not a gamble, Elena replied sharply. It's a choice. One humanity once faced and barely survived. Now it's your turn. But we're here to help you succeed. Elena gestured for the group to follow her, leading them through a series of corridors that eventually opened into a vast chamber. The keystone now floated before them, its surface shifting with subtle, intricate patterns. The room was silent, save for the faint hum of energy emanating from the relic. Step forward, Captain, Elena instructed. The keystone will present you with a challenge. It will test your understanding of power, restraint, and responsibility. Kren hesitated, his eyes flicking to his crew. Lissa's appendages twitched nervously, while Foon's scaled face showed open distrust. But Kren took a deep breath and stepped forward. As he approached, the keystone pulsed, and the room around him dissolved. In its place was a vast, star-filled void. Kren found himself standing alone, surrounded by images and sounds that seemed to echo from his memories, moments of triumph, regret, and fear. A voice, calm yet commanding, filled the space. It was neither human nor alien, but something in between. Captain Kren of the Centurion Alliance, the voice intoned. You seek the knowledge to confront the Void Heralds. But first, you must answer, what is the true measure of power? The question echoed in Kren's mind as the void around him shifted, forming scenes of conflict and conquest. He saw his people waging wars, conquering lesser civilizations, and expanding their reach. He felt a pang of pride, quickly followed by unease. The true measure of power is restraint, he said finally, his voice hesitant. It's knowing when not to use it. The void shifted again, showing a scene of a Centurion fleet annihilating a weaker species that had refused to submit. Kren's chest tightened. He had authorized that attack, believing it necessary to protect his people. Now, the destruction played out before him, raw and undeniable. Is restraint enough? The voice asked. Is it enough to hold power but never wield it? No, Kren said after a long pause. Power must be tempered by wisdom. It must be used sparingly and with purpose, to protect, not to destroy. The void began to brighten, the stars coalescing into a single point of light that grew into the keystone. Its patterns became more vibrant, shifting faster as though responding to his words. Back in the chamber, the crew watched in tense silence as Kren stood before the keystone, unmoving. Lissa whispered, "What's happening to him?" "He's being tested," Elena said simply. Whether he passes or fails depends on the choices he's made, and the ones he's willing to make now. Foon growled softly, his claws digging into the floor. And if he fails? Then the keystone will remain closed, Elena replied. And your people will face the Void Heralds unprepared. Before Foon could respond, Kren let out a sharp breath and stepped back from the keystone. The artifact pulsed brightly, then dimmed, its energy settling into a steady glow. Kren turned to face his crew, his expression weary but resolute. It accepted me, he said, his voice tinged with both relief and determination. We have access to its knowledge. Elena stepped forward, her expression one of quiet satisfaction. Then you've taken your first step. But the real challenge lies ahead. The Void Heralds will not wait for you to prepare. You must act quickly, and wisely. The room shifted again, revealing a map of the galaxy with the Void Herald's advance marked in ominous black. The humans had provided the tools, but now the Centurion Alliance would need to rise to the occasion. Captain, Elena said, her voice firm, humanity will stand with you. But the choices you make from here will determine not just your future, but the future of the galaxy. As Kren stared at the map, he felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. The test was far from over. The Void Heralds were coming, and the galaxy's survival depended on what he, and humanity, would do next. Captain Kren sat in the center of the command room, surrounded by the holographic display of the galaxy. The Void Herald's encroaching darkness loomed like a storm on the horizon, a chilling reminder of the stakes at hand. Despite the weight of responsibility pressing on him, he found a strange sense of hope in the human's calm determination. Dr. Elena Sharp stood beside him, her gaze fixed on the map. The keystone has accepted you, Captain. But this is only the beginning. To face the Void Heralds, the galaxy's civilizations must unite. Divided, we will fall. Kren frowned, his mandibles twitching. Unity isn't a simple request, Dr. Sharp. The Centurion Alliance has spent centuries establishing order in our sector. Many races under our banner have their own agendas, their own fears. Convincing them to join forces won't be easy. Elena turned to him, her expression resolute. It never is. Humanity learned that the hard way. But we don't have the luxury of time. You must act quickly. The hologram shifted, displaying key systems within the Centurion Alliance's territory. Some glowed green, indicating allegiance to the Alliance, while others pulsed red, signifying resistance or neutrality. Each red system represented a potential hurdle, leaders who would need convincing, factions that might rebel, and entire planets that might choose isolation over cooperation. What if they refuse? Lissa asked, her voice trembling. Some of these systems have resisted the Alliance for generations. Why would they listen now? Because the alternative is extinction, Elena said simply. She gestured toward the hologram, which zoomed out to show the spread of the Void Heralds. The darkness will not spare the isolated. It will consume everything in its path. If they refuse to unite, they're choosing destruction. Kren's secondary heart thudded in his chest, a physical reaction to the rising tension. He knew the challenges ahead. The Centurion Alliance had always been a delicate balance of diplomacy and force. To forge a unified front against a threat this overwhelming would require not just words but action. Foon stepped forward, his scaled form towering over the others. Captain, with respect, the Alliance's fleet is already stretched thin. Rallying these systems will require more than just speeches. We'll need to show strength. Elena shook her head. Strength alone won't win this fight. The Void Heralds thrive on fear and division. If you approach these systems as conquerors, they'll resist. But if you approach them as equals, offering protection and a shared purpose, they might listen. Kren's gaze flicked between Foon and Elena. Both were right, in their own way. The Alliance's strength was its fleet, but its greatest weakness was its inability to inspire true loyalty among the fringe worlds. Then we'll need to do both, Kren said at last. We'll show them that the Alliance is strong enough to stand against the Void Heralds, but also wise enough to value their independence. We'll offer them a choice: join us willingly, or face the darkness alone. The room fell silent for a moment, the enormity of the task settling over the group. Then, the hologram shifted again, highlighting a cluster of systems near the edge of Centurion space. These systems, Elena said, pointing to the map, will be your first test. They're among the most vulnerable to the Void Herald's advance. If you can secure their allegiance, it will send a powerful message to the rest of the galaxy. Lissa stepped closer to the display, her translucent appendages quivering. And how do we do that? What can we possibly say to convince them? Elena smiled faintly. Sometimes, words aren't enough. Actions speak louder. Show them the truth. The group moved swiftly to prepare. Kren and his crew returned to their ship, now equipped with technology provided by the humans. The upgrades were subtle but profound: enhanced communication systems, energy shields capable of withstanding the Void Herald's destructive power, and a small, experimental device derived from the Keystone's knowledge. As the Orion Vanguard departed Earth's orbit, Kren couldn't help but glance back at the planet. It looked so peaceful, its blue oceans and green continents belying the ancient power hidden beneath its surface. The humans had revealed much, but Kren suspected there was still more they weren't saying. "Captain," Lissa said, her voice breaking his thoughts. "We've set a course for the first system on the list, Zephyra Prime. They've been resistant to Alliance oversight for decades." Kren nodded, his resolve hardening. "Then we'll show them why this fight matters." Zephyra Prime was a lush world, its surface covered in vast jungles and shimmering lakes. The planet's leadership, however, was notoriously stubborn. When the Orion Vanguard arrived in orbit, they were met not with a welcome but with a fleet of defensive ships. "This is Governor Iresh of Zephyra Prime," a voice crackled over the comms. "State your purpose, or leave our space immediately." Kren stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "Governor, this is Captain Kren of the Centurion Alliance. We're here to discuss a threat that endangers not just your world, but all of us." "We've heard this before," Iresh replied, her tone dismissive. "The Alliance comes with promises of protection, but always at the cost of our autonomy. Zephyra Prime stands alone." "Governor," Kren said, his tone sharpening, "this isn't about the Alliance. It's about survival. A force far greater than any fleet in the galaxy is advancing, and it will reach your system soon. If you stand alone, you will fall." The silence that followed was heavy, but Iresh's skepticism was palpable. "Prove it," she said finally. "Prove this threat is real." Kren glanced at Lissa, who activated the experimental device. A projection appeared in the space before them, showing the Void Herald's advance in real time. The creeping darkness was unmistakable, its tendrils spreading toward Zephyra Prime. "This is what we face," Kren said. "A force that consumes everything in its path. You can stand alone and be swallowed by it, or you can join us and fight." The projection shifted, showing the destruction left in the Void Herald's wake, entire systems reduced to silence, their stars dimmed as if extinguished. Iresh's voice, when it came, was quieter. "And what makes you think we can stop this?" Kren straightened, his voice steady. "Because we won't be fighting alone. Humanity has faced this darkness before and survived. They've given us the tools and the knowledge to fight back. But we need you, your strength, your courage, your resolve. Together, we can win." There was a long pause before Iresh spoke again. "I will convene with my council. Give us time to decide." Kren nodded. "You have 12 hours. After that, the choice will be made for you." As the transmission ended, Foon turned to Kren. "Do you think they'll join us?" "They will," Kren said quietly, though whether it was confidence or hope, even he couldn't say. The Void Heralds were coming, and the galaxy's unity would determine whether they faced annihilation, or a chance at survival. The Orion Vanguard hung in orbit over Zephyr Prime, the tension aboard palpable. Captain Kren stood at the observation deck, his gaze fixed on the lush world below. Its beauty was a stark contrast to the encroaching darkness displayed on the ship's tactical holograms. 12 hours had passed since their ultimatum to Governor Iresh, and the silence from the surface was deafening. Kren's mandibles clicked softly, a sign of his growing impatience. "They're stalling," Foon muttered, his claws tapping against the console. "We should have forced their hand by now. We don't have time for diplomacy." Kren turned, his eyes narrowing. "If we force them, we'll lose more than their cooperation. We'll lose their trust. This alliance isn't just about numbers, Foon. It's about belief." Foon grumbled but said no more. Lissa, standing nearby, broke the silence. "Captain, incoming transmission from the surface." "It's Governor Iresh." Kren moved swiftly to the communications console. The governor's image appeared, a tall, imposing woman with silver-streaked hair and piercing green eyes. Her expression was unreadable. "Captain Kren," she began, her tone measured. "The council has deliberated. We will join your alliance, provisionally." "Provisionally?" Kren echoed, his voice betraying his frustration. "Yes," Iresh replied firmly. "We will contribute our resources and ships, but only under the condition that our autonomy is respected. Zephyr Prime will not become a vassal of the Centurion Alliance." Kren nodded. "Agreed. This isn't about control, Governor. It's about survival." Her expression softened slightly, though her tone remained guarded. "Then we are with you. May your alliance prove worthy of the trust we've placed in it." The transmission ended, and a collective exhale swept through the room. Foon shook his head. "Provisionally or not, it's a start." With Zephyr Prime secured, the Orion Vanguard set course for the next system. The pattern repeated: resistance, skepticism, and eventually, reluctant cooperation. Each world brought its own challenges, from political infighting to outright hostility. Yet, slowly but surely, the alliance grew. As they moved from system to system, the crew began noticing a change. The Void Heralds' advance, once a distant shadow, now loomed closer. Reports from the outer systems painted a grim picture: entire planets falling silent, their inhabitants consumed by the creeping darkness. In one such system, the crew encountered a harrowing sight. A small colony world, its skies filled with debris from shattered ships, its cities abandoned. The air was thick with a strange, suffocating energy, and the once thriving colony was now eerily silent. "What happened here?" Lissa whispered, her voice trembling. Elena Sharp, who had joined them aboard the Vanguard, stepped forward. Her expression was grim. "The Void Heralds leave no survivors. They don't conquer, they erase. This is what we're fighting to prevent." Kren clenched his fists, his resolve hardening. "We need to move faster. Every delay costs lives." The turning point came when they reached the system of Vikra 9, a heavily industrialized world known for its advanced shipyards. The Vikra were pragmatic and fiercely independent, their leaders notoriously skeptical of interstellar alliances. When Kren's team arrived, they were met not with diplomacy but with a fleet of warships blocking their approach. "This is Commander Drell of the Vikra Defense Fleet," a gruff voice boomed over the comms. "State your business, or prepare to be fired upon." Kren stepped forward, his tone calm but commanding. "Commander Drell, we're here to discuss an alliance against a threat that endangers us all. Lower your weapons, and let us speak." Drell's laugh was cold. "The Vikra don't need alliances. We've defended ourselves for centuries. Whatever threat you speak of, we can handle it." Elena stepped beside Kren, her voice cutting through the tension. "Commander, if that were true, your people wouldn't have sent distress signals. We intercepted them 2 weeks ago, originating from this system. Something is already here, isn't it?" The silence that followed was telling. Drell's voice, when it came, was quieter. "You intercepted those signals?" "Yes," Elena replied. "And we've seen what's coming. The Void Heralds will consume your world just as they've consumed others. But we can help you stop them." After a tense negotiation, the Vikra allowed the Orion Vanguard to land. The situation on the ground was dire. The Void Herald's presence was already felt, a creeping energy field encircling the outskirts of the planet, slowly drawing closer to its core. The Vikra's defenses, formidable as they were, had proven useless against the encroaching darkness. Kren, Elena, and a small team descended to the surface, meeting with Vikra leaders in a fortified bunker. The atmosphere was tense, the air thick with both fear and defiance. "You speak of unity," one of the Vikra leaders said, his voice tinged with skepticism. "But what can you offer that we cannot achieve on our own?" Elena stepped forward, placing a small device on the table before them. It activated, projecting a hologram of the keystone. The Vikra leaders leaned forward, their expressions shifting from skepticism to awe. "This is the keystone," Elena said. "An ancient relic that holds the knowledge to defeat the Void Heralds. With it, we can neutralize their advance, but only if we work together." "And why should we trust you?" another leader demanded. "What's stopping you from using this power to subjugate us?" "Because that's not who we are," Elena replied, her voice steady. "Humanity once stood where you are now, divided, distrustful, and proud. We nearly destroyed ourselves because of it. But we learned. And now we're here to help you avoid the same mistakes." The negotiations were long and grueling, but in the end, the Vikra agreed. Their fleets would join the Alliance, and their shipyards would begin producing vessels capable of countering the Void Herald's advance. As the Orion Vanguard departed Vikra 9, the growing fleet of Allied ships followed. The Alliance was no longer a distant hope, it was a reality. Yet Kren knew their greatest challenge still lay ahead. The Void Heralds were closing in, and the galaxy's united forces would soon face a battle unlike any they had ever known. The United Fleet, now composed of ships from dozens of civilizations, gathered at the edge of known space. It was the largest coalition ever assembled, a testament to the fragile but powerful unity forged in the face of extinction. The Orion Vanguard stood at its center, its advanced systems humming with quiet anticipation. Captain Kren surveyed the fleet through the viewport. Vessels of every shape and size filled the expanse, their hulls reflecting the faint light of distant stars. Though their designs varied wildly, they all bore a shared purpose: survival. "We've come a long way," Lissa said softly, her translucent appendages shimmering faintly. "But is it enough?" Kren's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "It has to be." Elena Sharp entered the bridge, her presence commanding attention. She carried with her the keystone, now active and glowing with a steady, pulsing light. Its patterns shifted like a living thing, responding to the collective will of those around it. "Captain," she began, her tone solemn, "the Void Heralds are close. Our long-range scans detect their presence just beyond this system. When they arrive, they will not hesitate. They will seek to divide us, to exploit our weaknesses. We must stand together." Kren nodded. "What does the keystone say?" Elena placed the artifact on the central console. Its light intensified, projecting a holographic map of the battlefield. Tendrils of darkness crept toward their position, but the map also displayed bright points of energy, strategic locations where the coalition could hold the line. "The keystone has identified weak points in the Void Herald's approach," Elena explained. "If we concentrate our forces there, we can disrupt their advance and force them into a vulnerable formation." "And what happens if we fail?" Foon asked, his voice low. Elena's gaze was unyielding. We don't fail. As the fleet prepared for battle, tension rippled through every ship. Messages of encouragement and final instructions flowed between commanders. On board the Orion Vanguard, Kren addressed the coalition through the fleet-wide communication channel. Today, we face the greatest threat our galaxy has ever known, he began. The Void Heralds are more than an enemy, they are a force that seeks to unmake everything we've built. But we stand here, united, because we refuse to surrender. We refuse to fall. He paused, letting his words sink in. Each of you represents the hope of your people. Today, we fight not just for survival, but for a future where our differences strengthen us, not divide us. Hold the line. Protect each other. Together, we will endure. A chorus of acknowledgements echoed through the channel, a wave of resolve spreading across the fleet. Moments later, the darkness arrived. The Void Heralds emerged from the void like a living storm, their ships vast and alien, their forms shifting and flickering as if they existed in multiple dimensions at once. The energy emanating from them was oppressive, a suffocating force that seemed to drain the very light from the stars. The first wave struck swiftly, tendrils of energy lashing out at the coalition's front line. Shields flared and ships shuddered, but the line held. The combined strength of the Allied fleets proved formidable, their weapons calibrated with the Keystone's guidance to counter the Herald's energy fields. Focus fire on the tendrils. Kren commanded, his voice sharp and clear. Cut them off from their main force. The coalition responded with precision. Streams of energy beams, plasma torpedoes, and kinetic projectiles surged forward, severing the tendrils and disrupting the Herald's formation. The darkness recoiled, momentarily thrown off balance. In the midst of the battle, the Orion Vanguard served as the command hub, coordinating the fleet's movements with the Keystone's guidance. Elena worked tirelessly, her fingers dancing across the console as she interpreted the artifact's shifting patterns. They're adapting, she warned. The next wave will be stronger. And it was. The Void Heralds surged forward with renewed ferocity, their attacks more coordinated and devastating. Ships from the coalition began to falter, their shields failing under the relentless assault. We're losing ground. Lissa cried, her voice tinged with panic. Kren's mandibles twitched, his mind racing. Pull back the second line to reinforce the front. Focus on protecting the weaker ships. Elena's voice cut through the chaos. Captain, the Keystone is detecting a vulnerability. Their central node, if we can disrupt it, we can destabilize their entire formation. Kren's eyes narrowed. What's the risk? It's heavily defended, Elena admitted. But if we don't take the chance, we'll lose everything. Kren didn't hesitate. Foon, assemble a strike team. The Orion Vanguard will lead the charge. The Vanguard surged forward, flanked by the coalition's most powerful ships. They cut through the Herald's defenses, carving a path toward the central node. The closer they got, the more intense the resistance became. Ships were lost, their sacrifices buying precious moments for the others to press on. Finally, the node came into view, a massive, pulsating construct surrounded by a web of energy. It radiated darkness, its presence overwhelming. Elena, what do we do? Kren demanded. She placed her hands on the keystone, her expression fierce. We channel its power. The keystone can neutralize the node, but it requires all of us, our focus, our will, our unity. Kren relayed the plan to the fleet. Across the coalition, crews synchronized their efforts, pouring their collective energy into the Keystone's guidance. As the artifact's light intensified, the node began to waver. The darkness around it thrashed violently, lashing out in desperation. We're almost there. Elena shouted. Hold the line. The coalition's ships pushed forward, their weapons battering the node's defenses. With one final surge, the keystone unleashed a blinding wave of energy, striking the node at its core. The construct shattered, and the darkness began to dissipate. The Void Heralds recoiled, their forces retreating into the void from which they came. The battlefield fell silent, the oppressive energy lifting as the stars shone brightly once more. Cheers erupted across the fleet. The coalition had done the impossible, they had stood united and prevailed against an ancient threat. As the Orion vanguard returned to the center of the fleet, Kren addressed the coalition one final time. Today, we proved that unity is stronger than fear. The Void Heralds sought to divide us, but together, we overcame them. Let this victory be the foundation of a new era, one where our differences strengthen us, and our unity ensures our survival. Elena stood beside him, the keystone glowing faintly in her hands. This isn't the end, she said quietly. The Void Heralds will return someday. But when they do, the galaxy will be ready. Kren nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. The battle was won, but the work of preserving their fragile unity had only just begun.